Right, I think most people are on board now for today's call. So let's get started. So thank you, first of all, thank you so much for joining our first of many series to do with Houst and how to grow your short let. Today we're discussing multiple things, looking at a session for introducing you guys to the short let market, getting to know you guys better and your personal property situation and your sort of objectives and what you're looking to do. I want to make sure we show you a lot of data around where the short-term market is heading over the next 10 years, looking to different trends and market analysis. We're looking at where you need to start if you haven't got a property at all, if you've got multiple properties already, your starting point and how to optimize your portfolio as you grow. We're looking at sourcing a property, where's the best place to look in the UK and worldwide, how you can do it, different methods and the sort of data we're seeing, and we can get it across to you. We're also going to look into the importance of furnishing your property, marketing a property, and also at the end we follow on with partnering with House, what we can offer to you, and also how we can help your journey to opening and growing a short let business as easy as possible. We hope this session is going to last about 40 minutes, and then we have Q&A session after and throughout the call. So don't worry, if you have any questions, please, as I said beforehand, write them in the comment section. We've got people on the call with us who will answer as we go. So let's get straight into it. So who am I? First of all, I'm part of House Community Lead. We're trying to build a community of different property owners and short let owners around the world, in all of our 21 different cities across the globe. We're joined today by Mo, who'll be talking a bit later. He's our short let expert and knows literally everything and the ins and outs of the market. We have our senior account manager on the call as well, Gary, who's also here to answer any questions you have about House and also more about the market itself. So let's start off. What is a short-term rental? There's a lot of discrepancies in different publications of what a short-term rental is, but in the actual definition is the practice of renting out the property or a part of it for a short period of time, usually less than 30 days. This is joined with a mid-term let, which is between 1 to 6 months, and then after that you have your long-term contracts, 6 months or longer, which AST landlords on the call will know you are legally bound to set out a contract. Short-term rentals are a great alternative to hotels. They are currently referred to as a holiday let or vacational rental property. They're targeted towards tourists and business travelers rather than students or other long-term renters. Unlike resorts, there's no home type restriction, which is a great asset of Airbnb and many of the short-term rental sort of market. You have apartments of different sizes, townhouses, cabins, houses, even boats with us on the platform. So while Airbnb has been growing at a significant rate over the last 10 years, it's now growing faster than the hotels. And with this, the standard and expectation of the guests is also growing. So it's really interesting that you're all on this call today, because we're going to be discussing how we can meet these standards and really optimize those average daily prices that you guys want, and so do we. So jumping straight into it and what the data is telling us, the growth of the short-term rental market is proliferating at a great rate. This year is expected that the whole market is about £36.1 billion in 2023. And speaking to Airbnb today, they estimate it to be around 111.2 billion pounds by 2030. And this is expected to keep growing over the next 10 years. Why is this growth happening? Well, as you guys may know, the short let industry is getting more accessible for anyone to join. We're seeing the average daily rates increasing by over 100% over the last 5 years in certain cities around the UK. The technology advancements is allowing people like yourselves to just jump on, manage a portfolio of properties, and we're seeing that it's getting easier and hassle-free. We have pricing algorithms in the market now that make optimizing your average daily rate, the guest experience. Now, sometimes we know property managers who are using AI now to assist guests. There's even keyless entry, such as digital locks that you can manage from apps, making Airbnb and the short-term industry entirely remote and digital, and it's hassle-free. So who can do short-term rentals? You guys might know this already, but we'll just go through it. We have 4 major types of people who use House and market. We have landlords, professional landlords who have big portfolios of properties or make use of are switching from longer-term lets to short-term let market. We have large investment property companies using House now, switching their whole longer-term lets onto the short-term let model. We have second holiday homeowners people who have that lovely place abroad or even in the cities and commute in during the week and out on the weekends, renting their property out 3 to 4 days when they're not using it. We have that primary homeowner, those people who are traveling away for 2 to 3 months and want to put their house on the market. So why invest in the short let industry? We are seeing a higher yield, on average 56% more than long-term lets. There's bigger flexibility for our landlords. If it's your second home or if you want to use your property for any reason or let it out to your friends and family, you can do that by just blocking out your calendar and key dates. There's a growing demand, as touched upon earlier. It's expected to increase dramatically in the next 10 years, and there's no better time to jump on this. And the tax incentives, unlike a lot of long-term traditional lets that have high tax and increasing mortgage rates, the short-term let market is currently very tax beneficial. But the main reason, as touched on a bit earlier, 56% is an increase in what we expect for short-term rentals over compared to long-term traditional lettings. This was taken from our data last year between May and September, and on average, our landlords saw 56% more each month of revenue. There's no better way to showcase this than our own recent property that has been put on Houst. A landlord came to us using the traditional let, or was looking at the traditional let market, but instead chose to go with Houst. This is a property in London, in Haggerston. As you can see, it's been renovated into 2 lovely short-term let rentals on the market. He was offered about £5,000 to £6,000 in long-term traditional letting options. These are a rental price is not bad at all, but with our sort of proposition, we were able to make between £10,000 and £12,000. And our landlord is seeing this even in February. He's seeing a revenue around like £11,000 and expected to even hit above £12,000 in the summer months. I'd like to open the floor now to any of you guys who have any questions about what's just been discussed. Please fire away on the comments.
We do have a few questions that were submitted. So question number 1, Tom, for you. Can you utilize the short let model on a residential mortgage? And a follow-up to that was, can I put them on Airbnb just 1 room?
So you can, in fact, put your 1 room up on Airbnb. House, unfortunately, doesn't deal with 1 room. We like to manage the whole property and a whole apartment in itself. So you can go ahead and put 1 room on Airbnb. On the first part of the question, residential mortgage, yes, you can. We work very closely with mortgage providers and lenders, so we're happy to consult on any type of mortgage that you have, and we can let you know whether that's appropriate or you can do it or not.
Cool, thanks for that. Another question that we had submitted pre-event is whether if I put my property on short list, can I still use it for personal purposes myself in the interim?
Yes, you can. So as I touched on a bit earlier, one of the main benefits is flexibility in short terms. So you can block out dates, whether that's your second home in a lovely destination abroad, you can block out for your family for 2 weeks, put it straight back on the market. A house, we basically clean it. We can replace the linen back to your original personal linen each time. So we have one customer who uses House, and they commute into London for their working week, then go back to out of London to their second home to enjoy the weekend in the countryside. But as they return, we change their linen back to their original, their personalised duvets and all of that, and sheets. We replace it all. So you can block out dates and even block out dates during the week or whenever you want to.
What's the minimum number of weeks or months in a year required for short lets to basically make it worthwhile compared to long lettings?
So we recommend highly that 2 months is when you see the difference in returns to long let market. That minimum of 2 months all the way up. For flexibility, 2 months is our minimum sort of period at House, and we recommend that is the time when you'll really see the high returns after you get great reviews on your profiles and start picking up great traction on these short-term networking platforms.
How do you meet your yield promise with the 90-day rule in London?
Okay, so I'm actually going to come on to this a bit later, but we have, obviously the 90-day rule hit House quite hard, so we came up with an innovative product where we have a flexible letting strategy. So that means we use Airbnb in those 90 days in your best high yield and revenue maximization periods. So it's normally either from June all the way to September and over the Christmas period. But within that time, we use mid-term lets. So on many different sites, we partner with over 13 different booking platforms. And then we go on to longer lets, depending on your personal strategy, your personal objectives. We partner with Rightmove and also Open Rent, and we also Zoopla to deliver that 6-month period and bring tenants in.
Another question from Malcolm. It's basically a comment between a question from Susie and Malcolm. Landlords are kind of giving up on buy-to-let due to tax. Can you explain how a short let might be better for tax rate purposes, or how is it more tax efficient than long term?
So I may part this go to my colleague Gary, as a senior account manager who deals with this on a day-to-day basis with all our tenants and all our clients.
So I'll be very careful and cautious about answering that as a blanket answer. It completely depends on your personal tax situation. You can, in some instances, write off the tax though against your expenses, unlike a typical rental mortgage. But for anything specific to your situation, I'd definitely get your accountant to assist you with it, because there are different situations where you can apply and different situations where you can't, depending on your personal revenue and income. So it's probably something that you need to talk more specifically around with your accountant, but it is something that you can absolutely write off as long as you're only using it for a specific time. So it's a little bit more complicated, but yeah, there's absolutely tax benefits, but you just need to be careful about your personal situation. I hope that helps. Sorry, I know it's not very definitive.
So thank you, Gary, for that. I appreciate the questions. They're really interesting, and we deal with these on a day-to-day basis. And if you have any more personal sort of situations and different questions for your own portfolio, please reach out to a member of our team outside of this webinar. We can go to more depth and detail to help you drive and optimize your portfolio. So I'm going to pass you over to our short let expert, Mo, who deals with the market data on a day-to-day basis and knows all the market trends and what is going on in the market.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed, but you can call me Mo. And I'm just like Tom just handed it over. I am the short lets expert, and I will be running you through everything that comes with doing this sort of model and the more boots on the ground aspect of how this all works. So, of course, when getting into this whole short-term rental market, it's all about where you start. The main part, of course, is finding the best location for you to start short letting your property. The main thing, of course, is the location. Choosing an investment property, of course, is always a very important part in where it is. And we do this by looking for convenient locations, of course, where we see a lot of trends of maybe tourism, events that happen around them, and all the different things that could affect the pricing. Profitable cities that we currently see and, of course, operate in as well are locations such as London. You have Bristol, Brighton, Bath, and Manchester. Those, of course, are only within the UK. And they are all popular destinations, as you can imagine, for tourism coming in. And like we mentioned, different events, anything that would affect the levels of demand, of course, in these regions is always very beneficial for doing this sort of model. Perfect. Of course, now what we'll speak about is what research, of course, and get some statistics about what are profitable places to short let your property. A main example that we'll use, of course, is Manchester. At the moment, we are seeing that Manchester is taking the top spot with an average nightly rate of around £127. You see, of course, that according to this data that's been provided, a 2-bedroom apartment in Manchester can make you around £34,000 in a year, which is always, it's always better than the longer term rentals. London and Bristol as well have been reclaiming their positions for being very enticing rental markets and opportunities by ranking 2nd and 3rd respectively since the 2022 data. Of course, the most important part next is how to find this property that works for you and where to source it initially. One of the many community perks, and of course the perks that you and resources you have available to yourself when you join with us at Houst, one of the main ones we have currently is being able to find some property data for yourself about where you can find a proper property. Through there, you see that Houst is partnered with the property data to make sure that it's easy for you to find prospective investment opportunities. You can find data on, of course, pricing and accepted offerings, rental values of how much you could be looking to earn potentially later down the line, yields, return, capital growth, and of course, other different statistics and analyses that can help you with making up your decision. They have their own algorithms, of course, that scan the market data daily and always update them accordingly to make sure that you're always up to date on what's going on in the market and analyze the trends accordingly. Do you have any questions at all so far from what we've mentioned?
How long does one have to be locked into you?
Absolutely. So when it comes to how long would you be locked in with us for, it absolutely just depends on what sort of plan you're going through. So as my colleague Tom mentioned earlier, we cater to different sorts of landlords. So this could be the home that you live in yourself currently, and you just travel, I'd say, somewhere around 2 to 3 months in a year, and you're looking to make some profits while you're away. We cater to that with something we call our part-time plan, of course, which is more month-on-month rolling basis. And then for more full-time landlords, of course, their properties are all on investments and they just look to get rentals in them all year round, we do cater to them with different yearly plans that offer, of course, different resources as well available to them, and they'll have all the help they need, and our teams will be tackling everything for them.
Hello guys, I'm back on the chat now. So moving on to furnishing your short let property. So obviously, as a trend, a lot of our landlords buy their properties without any furnishing, and people contact us all the time asking, what is the importance of it? We've seen at Houst now for many years, 7 years operating, it is impactful to invest in your property right at the beginning. A new stat or statistic last year in 2021, just after the COVID pandemic actually, was that good interior design has on average 12% of properties' nightly rental value price. That is a significant amount of money when it's built up over time. And we do highly recommend that. We can even consult you on this, but we highly recommend the investment in the initial stage into the property's interior, as you really do reap the rewards later on. With that, we want to make your property stand out. So our consultants help all our hosts and all our partners really understand what is so good about their property. So we normally advise them on utilizing a location, maybe incorporating themes in their properties, or make use of props such as interesting items, and even adding a sofa bed is an incredible way to up your average daily rate, as you can increase the number of guests within the property. So with this, another perk when you join Houst is that we have partnered with one of the best interior design firms in the UK called David Phillips. We honestly do recommend their service. They're great. They can deliver and furnish a new property within 48 hours. They have over £5.6 million worth of furniture in their warehouses, which they bring in consultants to design just for your property, and can deliver on time. And one of the best things about David Phillips is that they are designed to build Airbnb and short-term let properties. So we just recently did up a property for a host, and they did nothing at all. The company took over, did all of the essential utility items like irons, dryers, utensils for the kitchens, pots and pans, all these minor details which you do need in short lets to get those top reviews. And with this, when you join Houst, as a thank you, and also to make it easier and more affordable to our new customers, you enjoy a 10% discount with David Phillips. So if you are going to come and join us, please do reach out to one of our sales guys and our property experts, and they will pass you on to David Phillips, and they can help straight away. So I'm going to pass you back to Mo now. He's going to talk about all the ways you can market your short let property, which platforms to go on to, the best way to increase your occupancy rates.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Tom. Of course, now one of the biggest questions is how do you market your property on short let with the short let market? Where do you get all the exposure from? What we do here at Houst, of course, is that we place your property on multiple different platforms. So we don't singularly use Airbnb. We use platforms such as Booking.com, Expedia, Verbo, Rightmove, and Zoopla as well. And we do have a bunch of other examples available on the screen. Of course, the reason why we do this is to make sure your property has exposure. So we don't singularly limit your property to be available on a singular platform. They're available on all of them, so that whenever we miss out from one platform, they're coming in from the other. A perfect statistic to kind of show you of how that works is right here. If you do observe the graph that's been provided, you're looking at the monthly kind of booking percentages that have been coming in over the past year through the different platforms. You can see that the trend starting from January of 2022, Airbnb was dominating the market, but over time, you see that there's been incremental growth through Booking.com and the other platforms as well. This shows you that, of course, how important it is to do this sort of aspect. And we've been doing this for quite a while to make sure that we're capitalizing on that and reaching absolutely everyone. So the $1 million question, as we like to call it here, is, of course, how we look to price your property and where do we get you those returns from? Before we get into that, of course, the first thing you need to take into account is that there are other costs. When pricing your property, you need to take into account the different service fees that come into play from these platforms. Starting off with examples like Airbnb and Booking.com, they usually range from around 10 to 20%. It genuinely does depend on the different platforms, and they will take their own percentage for using their platforms to do so. You also need to ensure that you're including the cleaning fees, which of course the cleaning will all be organized by us here at Houst, where we have our own cleaning teams, and we also provide you with our own linens of hotel quality grade. So we'll be taking care of all of that for you, but you should take that into account when pricing. And there are different taxes, of course, with pricing your property. You might be familiar with the VAT, of course, that is applicable in all of them. So take that into account as well with a grain of salt, and just to make sure you end your tax year smoothly. Of course, the next thing that I will mention is that, like we spoke about previously, there are different events and there are different factors that can affect the levels of demand. And when you do come on board with us here at Houst, we will be taking all of that into account and making sure we're adjusting the prices accordingly. You have things such as special events. So it could be either sporting, it could be a cultural event. A prime example I can give you right there is like the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh that occurs. During those periods, we see huge markups in prices due to increased levels of demands. And of course, when you're with us at Houst, we'll be taking all of that into account and reflecting it upon the price. Other things such as seasonality as well are taken into account. Christmas period throughout all regions is always a very popular destination for all these countries and cities. So we always mark up the prices. And, summer periods, a big example of this, you might be familiar with Brighton, of how seasonal it is. And we will, again, reflect that all upon the pricing. We do also a mixture of different letting strategies, as my colleague has mentioned before, to take into account the 90-day letting law as an example of many other things. So for these longer let-off periods, we would provide the guests with a sort of shorter discount. Why not give them something like a 10% off? Because at the same time, you're making sure that property is being occupied fully, which is always a plus. Right here with the graph that's shown, you can see where it shows you kind of an example of where we get these different sorts of bookings. So somewhere around for the short-term lettings, we use platforms such as Airbnb, Vrbo, Expedia, and Booking.com. For more of the mid-term lettings, somewhere around 3 months, we go for platforms like HomeLike and Spot Home. And then for the lettings that we do up till 6 months, so it could be from 3 months until 6 months, we do use Zoopla as well. So of course, one of the main important parts is how do you create these listings and how do you optimize it to make sure that it's catching everybody's eye? We will be taking care of all of that for yourself. Starting off with getting professional photography conducted and organized. We have our own professional photographers who we'll send out, and they will deal with all of it accordingly and put it up and send it back to our teams, where we will be creating the listings. Through these listings as well, we will be drawing up the descriptions to highlight, of course, every unique point of your property. So if there's a certain view, if there are certain amenities, we will make sure that we're highlighting all of that for yourself. Another big factor to take into account is the different 90 stays and getting that perfect price point, which we do. Going back to our price, we have our algorithm that we mentioned previously. Basically, it's an algorithm that we've built ourselves, and it takes into account the different factors affecting demand, as well as making sure that you're getting a price point that focuses on high occupancy rates, because that is one of the most important parts in this sort of model. Do you guys have any questions at all so far from everything that we just spoke about?
One was related to the rental income. So we're saying it's around, on average, 56% more than traditional lets. How much could one hypothetically make in top season per night in a specific locality?
So regarding how much you could make in a specific locality, of course, all depends. There are different factors that go into this. That's why we have our algorithm and, of course, all of the different databases that we have access to. The algorithm itself is built on years of data that's been compiled together to always reflect it and catch on to the different trends and even forecast into the future. So for even smaller localities, it all depends on if it's close to transport locations. Of course, that can bump up the price slightly. Even those little arbitrage things that can affect the price, we will take that all into account. And when you do inquire with us, we can provide you with an estimate initially, where we can give you a bit of an insight as to how much you could potentially earn.
There were some people asking earlier about Houst operating abroad. So related to that, if Houst does not operate in my area, does that mean I can't use any of House's services?
When it comes to operating with us, of course, if you don't operate within our region, we would be unable to service these areas just because of all the different operational things that go into it. We would require you to come back on board. But we could always help you if you do inquire with us to see if you need any help with kind of an insight as to where to purchase your property. We have different things available where we can provide you with some insight as to good locations.
I would just like to add on that we are actually in the process of building another product to allow people who aren't currently in our cities. The name of it is called House Anywhere. It allows property managers around the world to plug in their cleaning teams and linen providers and basically use our software that we've built over 7 years and the technology we have behind House in our city locations, allow it for people who in geolocations that we currently don't operate in. So please do reach out and ask and provide your interest in that product if you want to. When we launch it, we'll be straight out to you guys and we will update you when it is launched.
What happens if the owner incurs damages from people staying in the property? So for example, broken window, broken appliance. How does Houst handle any property issues, damages that might come up?
Of course, with regarding any damages that could be incurred due to guests, we do have insurance policies at play. Airbnb offer their own insurance policies, and for all the other platforms, we have our own with a company called Guardhog, and they basically offer reimbursements for damages caused by guests. Our teams will be raising a claim with them and communicating with the proper case managers who will be assigned to us to get you those reimbursements and get it all sorted for yourselves.
Do you have any sellers wanting to sell? I'm assuming this would probably be people that are in the process of selling and they're looking to kind of not have a vacant property, but monetize it somehow through short lets.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. We do have a couple of hosts with us on that. That's where our kind of part-time plan that I mentioned previously comes into play. We require a minimum usually of 2 months to give you guys a bit of insight on that. So for over this period until you do finish the sale of the property, we can get you on board and make you that money in the meantime and make sure the property is achieving its potential.
Thanks for that. Another question, do you inspect the property and assist with repairs, upkeep of the property?
We, of course, do have maintenance teams on standby that we can always send out, and we can deal with any issues that could arise. Again, the whole premise of us being here and what we do is to make sure this is all as hassle-free as possible. So we have all of these resources available to you guys to make the most out of. So at any point, if you need help with anything at all, you reach out to one of our teams and they'll deal with it all accordingly for yourself, and they'd let you know.
Thanks for that. I guess this is a follow-up on one of the previous questions that Tom answered regarding Houst Anywhere. So the question is, could one use you for other services, that is getting the property filled, but they sort out their own cleaning and maintenance if the property is abroad? So basically in one of the locations we don't fully manage.
Yeah, so House Anywhere, you basically have options to the technology that we use. So for example, you can use our multi-platform calendar, which I think we're talking about here, where we can list your property on multiple platforms and gain that exposure you want to increase the occupancy rate. You don't have to use this or plug in the cleaner, although we completely automated your cleaner, so it saves you or a lot of our hosts rather than like WhatsApping their guest or the cleaner when the guest is arriving, or WhatsApping them when the check-in or needs to take place. That can all be automated through the app. So you can use your own cleaners while using House Anywhere, although we highly recommend it makes sense for them to be plugged in. Very easy to use software we're developing. And yeah, it would be very simple to use for them to access. So I see it'd be the same sort of cost, we believe, at this current moment in time. So it's a win-win for everyone involved in your property management. So partnering with House. So who we are, the property management company. We're one of the largest management companies in the world. We operate in around 21 different cities, 11 different countries around the globe. We currently have a turnover, or since 7 years operating, around £112 million revenue since we launched in 2015. So we have an occupancy rate around 83.6%. This changes depending on locality and different cities. And as we said earlier, 56% is the revenue increase that we're seeing in the market, and that's why we've become so popular with landlords and property portfolio, people own portfolios switching to the short let market.
So what I will run you all through, of course, is what we were speaking about previously of taking the whole hassle away of doing this. Right in front of you, you can see a bit of a sort of pie chart that shows you the different time and how much it takes and what really goes into taking care of an Airbnb. You can see that responding to requests, organizing for cleans and actually conducting them, the laundry, greeting the guests, communicating with them and restocking everything takes around 50 hours per month, if not more, of course, to deal with all of this. And that's where we come in. Right here, you can see, of course, a little bit of data about us. We've generated over 112 million pounds in revenue for all of our hosts around the world. We also have managed around 6,439 properties. And at the moment, we are operating around 19 cities in the world with, of course, eyes and growing into more regions. Now, the question, of course, that everyone always asks and what's mainly asked is what makes us stand out from everyone else in the market? Of course, if it's not the fact that we list your property on multiple different websites that we use, like we mentioned earlier, it could go to us not using third-party cleaners. We vet all our cleaners, and of course, we deal with them accordingly. We'll be managing everything that they do. We have even an integrated system where cleaners get rated. And then for each person's property, let's say it'll pick up which cleaner did the best job, and it'll consistently send them out, because consistency in achieving these high rates and high standards is key to making sure everything flows as smoothly as possible. We also have things like we mentioned previously about our dynamic pricing algorithm and our kind of tech edge in that sense, where we focus on earning you the high returns as well as high occupancy rates, which is the perfect balance and the most important part of this. And our teams that are available 24/7 to deal with anything that comes in from guest side, anything that guests might need, those 5 a.m. calls that someone gets in the middle of the night. We're there to deal with all of that. Nothing for our hosts to worry about on that.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan,
Right in front of you
and
over
this
here,
is
you can
our
see
house
a bit of an
dashboard.
example as to what our host dashboard looks like. What that is that it's basically a platform that all our hosts will have access to when they sign up with us, and it'll be that centralized database for them to look through. You see right here, that's kind of the landing page that you see. You will be able to track different metrics of your occupancies, the previous bookings, as well as the different home information, calendar as well.
Next, we
Another
have
example
a
here is that you'll
billing
be able to see
section,
other
which includes
sections
all
like
of
our
your
performance, our
transactions
billing. You
and
can see,
invoices
of
that you
course,
may
a
have
full
incurred
breakdown of all the costs that were incurred
that are
and how
all
we take care of
downloadable
everything
here.
for yourselves. You can track metrics like your performances as well, see how much your property is being occupied, as well as the net revenues that you're making yourselves. And you can even track your cleans, where our cleaners will actually upload photos of your properties after every clean's been conducted, and then put them up on this dashboard where you can log in, and wherever you are in the world, you will have full access to them and see precisely how everything's going.
Also have a quick overview
Over
of
here
all
as
the
well, you can see
platforms.
where we list your platforms on. So if at any point in time you want to see what the listings are looking like and you want to admire a little bit of artwork, as you might say, you just click on any of those and it'll take you to the landing page of what guests usually see when they're trying to book out your property, and all that information will be available to you from there. Right here, we will have an example played right now of one of our hosts who left us a bit of an understanding and a review of what his experience was like with us here at Houst.
I own a portfolio of around 12 properties here in London. Been a landlord now for 20 plus years. I started long before any of this short-term stuff kicked in. I moved over to short-term letting just over 5 years ago, purely because I saw it as a good way to generate some income for some of my properties. Since then, it's been a great move. I would say overall, I'm probably making anything from 30 to 50% extra with the short lets. I think I've learned quite a lot. You need to make sure the place is of a high spec. That's one thing I have learned, is that money needs to be invested, but you will get it back. And to be honest with you, most of the money I invested in my first few properties, I got it back within the first year, less than that actually. So basically just that summer period, got everything back. With Houst, don't really have any complaints, to be honest. I find the service very efficient. I find one of the most important things for me is dealing with people who know the business that they're in and know how to deal with issues, how to deal with problems. And with Houst, I'm happy to say that has been the case. And the issues I have had, managed to resolve very quickly. In terms of revenue that they've generated for me this year's on 3 properties so far, I have been very pleased actually, even though right now I've got 2 properties which are outside that busy summer period. We're talking October, November time, but both of those properties are still sort of generating anything from 30 to 40% on top of what they would have done. They're on long lets. And next year I will be adding on a few more properties once they become vacant, hopefully sort of during that summer period. So try and cash in a bit more. In terms of the service that's been provided to me, it is actually very, very good. I do have a dedicated account manager who I have contacted via email and via phone. So it's actually nice to have someone at the end of the phone as well, as opposed to an email, always communicating through email. So I do have that in place, and they have been very responsive. Even if my account manager is away, say on annual leave or something, there's always someone there to cover. Before I started short lettings, one of my biggest concerns is, am I going to be getting these stories that you see in the news and in the papers of people renting out Airbnb and trashing the place, having crazy parties? Now, I think one of the most important things today is about how your agent manages or sort of vets potential guests. To be honest, over the last two years plus that I've been with Houst, I haven't had any issues with any problematic guests. If I did, I would know, because I actually know a lot of the neighbors who live next to these houses that I've got on short lets. But no, so far there's been no issues at all. I do actually like the fact that on quite a few occasions Houst have contacted me when a potential guest wanted to do a booking that they were a little bit concerned of and sort of asked for my opinion. You know, in most cases I actually said, no, you're right, I don't think these people are suitable. But it's very good that they do vet people, and if there is a question mark, they do come to me to get sort of my opinions on things as well. And that's definitely helped in us sort of so far having a quite a smooth ride when it comes to having good guests and no problematic guests really. I think the platform itself, I myself am a software engineer, so I do know a little bit about web development and web interfaces. To be honest with you, I think the platform is excellent. It's very clear, it's very easy to use. All the information that I'm interested in is there. So I think whoever designed this definitely had done a lot of research as to what is it that me as a landlord would want to see, what information do I want. One example would be, I like how the pricing is broken down such that, you know, I can see exactly what costs are being deducted. And for me, my most important figure, my net figure is always on display. There's the calendar is very good. It's nice to sort of visualize how your bookings are coming along. The invoicing pages, again, very clear, very concise, very easy for someone like me who has to do annual tax returns on so many properties. My accountant certainly appreciates me just being able to send through these invoices to him. So overall, the platform is top notch actually, and the service being provided is very, very good as well. And I'm someone who's dealt with a lot of estate agents over the last 20 years, and I think landlords who've been in this game for a long time will know finding a good estate agent is as hard as finding, if not harder than finding good tenants, because it's been a very good relationship so far.
Cool. A few questions regarding what happens with the people that have access. So specifically, how do we vet guests?
Thank you, Andre. Of course, when it comes to vetting guests, what we look to do is look for previous ratings and for them to be verified on platforms that have that option applicable to them. Examples of that could be Airbnb. For a lot of you who might be Airbnb users from the guest side, might know about that option that they have. Of course, for other platforms that might not have that option applicable to them, what we look to do is manually vet the guests. So we basically inquire as to the reason of their stay and communicate with them. We also mention all the house rules that the hosts like yourselves would tell us, you know, no smoking, no pets, anything of that sort. And on top of that, we will ask them to provide us with a photo of themselves and a form of identification. So usually 2 forms of ID. So it could be an ID card and a passport. Anything that we can verify their identities ourselves, we will go through these procedures to have things flow smoothly as possible from the get-go.
Faye is pretty much asking about marketing materials, welcome packs for guests, and any other guest communications that we do. I think Gary has already answered that one. So pretty much is that we use a guest app rather than a welcome pack, and it's all done via digital communications. Andrew, again, asking if we use our own channel management software or some external platforms.
Hi, Andrew. It's a combination of the two. So we have a direct API link with Airbnb. So we get the information directly from Airbnb, but we also use a third-party consolidation platform called Bookingsing. to consolidate all of our other platforms. So it all comes through onto our dashboard as a single platform, but we do have a combination of both our own software as well as external.
Taking now the final question, how do you charge? Do you charge as a revenue share? Karnak again is asking, what's the fee?
Thank you, Andre. So of course, when it comes to how we take our fees, basically it would be a percentage that's deducted from the total revenue, from the total of the booking. That is the main structure that we have. And of course, regarding the different fees that we do have, it, as you can imagine, depends on different regions. So if you have certain specifics and certain insights, and the different plans that we do have charge different fees, which of course would all be available to you guys through our website. To give you a little bit of insight on how it works, the more available nights that you provide with us, the more we can provide you with a lower fee, because we have the ability to get more bookings in and of course generate more revenue for the both of us.
Cool, thanks for that. Another interesting question about the rent-to-rent model. Does that support Airbnb and running a service like Houst? Cool, so the straightforward answer there would be yes, as long as there's prior consent from the, let's say, superior landlord. Erlene is also asking the fees from Airbnb, how are those factored in?
So when it comes to taking into account the different percentages that these platforms might take, like I mentioned earlier on, that they take somewhere between 10 to 20%, what we basically do ourselves is we mark up the price of the total nightly rate. So to kind of give you a bit of an example on how that would work, if it's at £100, if it's at 15%, we put it up to somewhere around 115. That way we're taking that into account in the pricing model, and that's how basically we take those into account.
Cool. I think we're going to draw an end now. So Tom, if you want to go for the final slides, and then we thank everyone for attending.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for staying through it. And just to finish off, if you enjoy what you've seen today, we have a refer a friend scheme going on at the moment where you come on board. Our sales team will happily, if you attended today, we will cross-check it with when you have a sales call. We can offboard or waive on the onboarding fee, the £150 usually for normal hosts. For you guys for joining and attending today, we're happy to waive that to get you started and kickstart your short-term letting journey with House. If you're really happy as well with the service and you think it is applicable to some other people you know in the area, or people want to get the short-term lets, please refer them to us. You'll receive £300 after they have their 10th booking. And just to let you know, we have a free calculator on our website. So if you haven't played around with it already and you're looking at investment properties or you have a property already, please go through it and put in your property. We can estimate the monthly generated revenue that House can get for you. And it's a great way to see if short-term letting is a viable option and a profitable option for you. And kickstart your journey with us. But thank you very much for joining. Please reach out to us if you have any more questions. We can book in an expertise consultation with our sales team. They'll happily answer any questions you have and any queries you have about the short-term let market for your personal situation. And hopefully we can start generating that great and maximizing that revenue for you and your property. Thanks so much, guys. Have a lovely evening.